This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by North Dakota Tourism. Start planning your next hunting adventure in North Dakota at legendarynd.com. And by Onyx Hunt, the #1 GPS hunting map app. Onyx, know where you stand. Today I'm talking with Tim Caughran, the Director of Field Operations for Quail Forever. We're taking a tour across America's quail country to give you the most up-to-date information heading into quail seasons. We'll discuss hotspots and places where you'll find explosive coveys of quail. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank. I'm your host. Brandon Morton is our producer. Today's guest is Tim Caughran from Quail Forever. Tim, where do you call home?
I actually live in Southern Illinois. I'm about a half hour outside of St. Louis in Godfrey, Illinois.
Gotcha. How many quail hunters do you think you guys have in Illinois?
We don't have a real accurate way of knowing for sure, but not as many as we should have. Historically, this state, at one point it harvested over 2 million birds a year. It was a big quail state. They were just a byproduct of our agricultural practices. But over time, as that's cleaned up a lot, our annual bird harvest is, unfortunately down below as few as 50,000 birds. And, as those numbers have decreased, so have the quail hunters. But, here's of recently, in past years with the Farm Bill programs and, CP33 and buffer programs and things like that, the birds are in a lot better shape than they could be. We wiped out a lot of fence rows historically, but buffer programs and programs like CP33, are the closest thing to fence row or edge cover replacement we're going to see. And with that, the numbers have stabilized, if you will, and people are hearing birds, and it warms their heart and gets them back into chasing them again. And I think, recently with the people being locked down or staying close to home, you got a lot more people enjoying the outdoors, and I expect to see hopefully a rise in number of hunters as well as birds this year.
How long ago was your harvest at 2 million birds in your state?
As early as the 70s,
Okay.
I think we still harvested over 1 million birds going into the early 80s. But then I'd say it's probably about the time when you saw farming become incredibly efficient. It really got clean around that time. It wasn't a lot of leftover thatch or weeds of any nature, after crops were harvested or while they were growing, if you will. Farming practices just really became effective and incredibly clean on the landscape. And with that, it hurt the bird numbers significantly.
Mm-hmm.
It just took away a lot of habitat.
I live in Minnesota and hunt, the Dakotas a lot. Do you think we'll ever see a rebound in quail numbers in our state up here?
It just depends on the habitat, the available programs and practices, and it's weather dependent too. But I think you could if everything goes well. I saw in Nebraska, a couple of years ago, they put a lot of edge programs in the ground. They had good weather, and they literally doubled their harvest in 1 year, which is incredible. You get a couple 3 years like that, and you're back into the glory days, And right. in Iowa, southern Iowa, the last few years they've done a lot for quail habitat, and they're seeing phenomenal numbers. And I really think you just they're prolific. They can increase just as fast as they can decrease. And right. If everything's right, I think you could see some great numbers again. And I try to tell people too, in my profession, if you will, that I don't like to talk about the glory days, honestly, because it's just different times. It's just a totally different time in the world. But I think honestly, if we can stay on the right track, putting good habitat on the ground, I think our glory days are yet to come. For this generation and the next one.
Well, and we're seeing, this hunting season in particular has just been phenomenal. I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of states that are opening up soon
Hmm.
as we head south and west. I mean, quail seasons are about to kick off. Some have already started, but I mean, up here, Midwest, upland bird hunting, mountain states, the numbers have been phenomenal, and a lot of people are saying it's like the good old days. It's like the
Yeah.
good old days. I mean, you look on social media right now, and there's not a negative comment in regards to anything upland bird hunting, even
Yeah.
rough grouse hunting too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's wild to me because it's a, certainly with COVID going on and whatnot,
Mhm.
it makes for a an odd year, a sensitive year, if you will. And but yet, like, it's just, one of the good things, that I see right now is that at a time when everybody is kind of locked down close to home or got more time on their hands, it's pretty amazing that the bird numbers and forecasts are what they are, because
Mhm.
I know if everybody's going to be doing it, I'm just glad there's a lot of it, and I think that'll make for a lot of happy memories out there on the landscape this year. I just got back from North Dakota, and I got to tell you, man, it was incredible.
Wasn't it good? God,
Oh,
dang it. I've not heard one bad report from up there. I mean, I really
oh,
haven't. I know they're a presenting sponsor of this show, and it feels like I'm always talking about North Dakota, but I
oh,
seriously haven't had a bad report from anybody.
it,
Listeners are writing in. They're like, hey, dude, seriously, North Dakota, wow, that was
oh,
amazing. Text
it was,
messages.
it
Yeah, where
was,
did you go, dude? Can you say?
yeah, yeah. I don't care. I was around the McCluskey area, just kind of central part of the state, if you will. It's about 45 minutes to the north and east of Bismarck,
Mm-hmm.
and just drove around and used my Onyx app and my plots book and knocked on doors. And I used to frequent that area for a while. I went about 5 years in a row, just because of the access alone, and all the different birds and things to do, duck, pheasant, sharp tail, Huns, everything. I love the variety there and all the
Uh-huh.
access. And I hadn't been in a few years, and I just went. I cut through there actually on the way home from chasing antelope in Wyoming, and man, it was the best I've ever seen it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just phenomenal. You know,
Oh,
it it,
that's awesome.
it
Can I ask, what was your success rate on knocking doors?
um, I'd say 50-50. I'd
Yeah,
say
that's
about
pretty
half.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my best friend Andy's from Tennessee, and I love to send him to the door because I think they really like to hear his accent, you know. And he's like my secret weapon, It's just like I let him start talking first because they just, they love it. They just, a lot of times folks out there, they don't get to socialize like a lot of people in big cities or metropolitan areas. So I think they like, they enjoy the company of talking to people. And then
Yeah.
you mix in my my southern friend, and it's I don't know, man. It's like they say, he's like my secret weapon, And then if
They get a
somebody
kick out of them, I bet.
oh, they love it, And then if somebody tells him no, which it's always friendly, but if somebody tells him no, it's
Yeah.
just like he's that more driven to get the next one. And
Oh.
it's fun. It is. It's a good
Well,
time.
and that's one thing. I mean, I've hunted North Dakota since I was in high school with my buddies. We would drive up there and we knocked on hundreds of doors. And I don't know if maybe I'm not quite as young and they're not as, because your success rate when you're younger, I feel like they're more concerned about your safety maybe. And now that I'm a little bit older, I just talked to them for
Oh
quite a while,
yeah.
and I feel like I'm batting about 75% right now on
Oh, that's
my
awesome.
knocking on doors. I mean, even in Minnesota too. It's North Dakota's always been one of those places where a lot of those landowners have so much property that they seem to be more likely to say yes when you knock on doors,
Hmm.
and also grateful for
Hmm.
when you do it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
nice. Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
to hear you've had such a good hunting season so far. If South Dakota gets kind of labeled the pheasant capital of the world, what would you call the quail capital of America?
For me, I'm biased because of where I live, but I like Kansas a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just The access there is incredible. I think their walk-in program is the measuring stick for the rest of the country, if you will. They got over 1.7 million public acres, walk-in hunting
Mhm.
acres, and it's if you put your time in out there, you'll find birds, you'll kill birds. I've never gone out there and tripped over quail everywhere, but the amount of places that you have to go is amazing. And once, if you can get over there or get in there on a trip and you can start to figure out where the birds are, what kind of cover they're in at the time you're there, you
Mhm.
can begin to just scour the countryside out there and start looking for what the birds like at that time you're there, and you can really be successful because there's so much of it and there's so much access to it.
Which part of Kansas? I mean, if you had to say like this is the kind of region that tends to have the highest numbers, where would you go?
I like to run clear over to the Colby area, over
Mhm.
towards the western central part of the state. And there's birds north and south of there and east and west, I'm sure, but um I start to feel good when I get that far. I mean, it's just like I'm sure I'm driving by a lot of birds getting there, but I seem to find, there and north of there, I seem to find a lot of quail, or at least it feels good to me. There's a confidence level in me when I get to that part of the state, but I'm sure folks do very well in other places. The trips I've made and the places I've looked, I've done the best over that way.
What makes that area so good?
Um, you know, it's just it's the habitat for me. The habitat type is there. I see a lot of plum thickets and edges and fence rows and things like that, and it's not so much open grassland like the pheasant areas of the state. At least I feel that way.
Mhm.
And I don't, you don't see a lot of hunters too when they go to that state. They want to be able to hunt both. If you're in an area where there's pheasants and quail, it's typically going to be crowded. And I feel like once I get over that far, there's more quail than pheasants, and there's less hunters. Because I don't see as many diehard quail hunters that are just strictly going after quail. And I love pheasant hunting too. I mean, I love hunting in places that have both,
The
but I
mixed
feel
bag.
yeah,
Yep.
I just think that pheasant hunting's probably, it seems like it draws more people. I won't say it's more popular, but it draws a crowd. And once you get into the quail areas, I feel like the pressure gets a little less, and the hunting is that much better for the people who are chasing them.
Well, before we got into Kansas, I was going to ask you about what is your title at Quail Forever?
I'm the director of field operations. I started out working for the organization about this January. It'll be 18 years.
18. Wow.
Yeah, I was a habitat specialist. Started out as a habitat specialist. I was working for the DNR in Wisconsin as a wildlife technician, and that was the year that they discovered chronic wasting disease in their deer herd. And I had this dream job where I was working at Horicon Marsh, and I was working on the Rock River, and I was planting prairie grass every day for landowners. And man, I told people I made pheasants for a living. It was this incredible job. And man, they discovered chronic wasting disease. And, I mean, for lack of a better term, my dream job kind of became a nightmare because suddenly it just shifted and we were shooting deer, every day. And if we weren't shooting deer, we were taking head samples, and we were, at that time it was new, and the landfills wouldn't even take the deer, and
Mhm.
we were shooting deer and burning deer every day. And
Oh,
it was just sucking the life out of me. And it was work that had to be done. I don't, I understand it. It really started to eat at me because it was just hard to do. And I was pretty down, and I was volunteering with a pheasant, things I loved on my days off, they used to be my job. And man, they said that Pheasants Forever was looking at starting this habitat specialist program. And it was going to be folks that went out and provided habitat services for landowners that actually sat on equipment and put seed in the ground. And it was like, oh man, how do I get one of those gigs, And
yeah.
And I sat down with them. I got an interview and I sat down, and I remember, they were telling me about Pheasants Forever. It was Rick Young, the VP of Field Ops, sat down with me at a Perkins, and he said, man, he's going on about Pheasants Forever and the fundraising model. And I just cut him off and I said, hey, man, I know everything there is to know about Pheasants Forever. I said, I need to know what you need to hear from me. So I got this job on Monday. And that's about the end of the conversation. He told me to order breakfast, and we talked about hunting, and I got the job. And
Wow.
It's been great. I was a habitat specialist for about 3.5 years. It was like a biologist dream. I got to do that every day. And then, we started the Farm Bill Biologist program, which was the technical assistance end of things. And I was doing both. Honestly, I was helping people get into programs, and then I'd go out and plant the seed for them, and it was great. And I became a regional wildlife biologist. It opened up, that position opened up in Illinois. And Illinois is where I'm born and raised. And I loved Wisconsin. My wife was from Wisconsin, so that's why we were up there. And we got married up there. And then when this regional wildlife biologist job opened up in Illinois, I talked my wife into quitting her job and moving back here where I was from. And it's worked out really well, because at that time we started Quail Forever. And I always wished I could do what I was doing for Pheasants Forever in the quail range. Like, it was the perfect fit. And I ran all over the quail range in the South and Southeast. And I started over 100 Quail Forever chapters to help get things going. And, through that became a field rep, servicing and starting chapters all over the country, and then a field manager managing the East region of the country. And then when Jim Woolley retired as the director of field operations for Quail Forever, I was lucky enough to get his job.
When did Quail Forever merge with Pheasants Forever? Or because before it was Quail Forever, it was called.
It wasn't. So it's just been, sorry to cut you off, but so Pheasants Forever has been around for 35 plus years. And back in 2005, they decided to start another branch of the organization called Quail Forever. And the reason for that is that we have this unique fundraising model. We empower local volunteers. We help them raise money. They get to keep control 100% of the money they raise, and then we help them match that and partner it and leverage it, and just do great things in their community. And we had agency partners and conservation partners, state and federal, coming to us, south or outside of the pheasant range, saying, hey, when can we do something like that here? States like Tennessee and Kentucky and, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia. We had folks who were wanting to start pheasant chapters that, didn't even have pheasants, because they wanted our grassroots fundraising model that was unique of any other national conservation organization. So after having them beat on us for a few years, we started Quail Forever, and it took off like a rocket, and honestly, in the last 2 years, last 3 years, it's grown more than it has in the first 12 to 13. It's really become a force in the quail world. We're putting a lot of biologists on the ground, helping a ton of landowners put a ton of acres in the ground, and it's really going well. And we're just trying to do everything we can to keep the needle moving the right way for quail.
Yeah. Do is there a reason why it's grown so much the last 2 years that you guys can put your finger on?
Yeah, I think as the concern for quail numbers increases, I think more people want to get involved, and more people want to join the fight to keep them around because they love them so much. And then also, we didn't have our 35-year reputation that we have in the Midwest and the North. We didn't have that down South, and I think it's really catching on now. And a lot of states are talking to each other, and they start to get jealous of the program or hear about the program we have going in Illinois or Arkansas or Missouri or Kansas. Them pretty quick Alabama calls and says, hey, how do I get in? How do we get some of those Farm Bill biologists or habitat specialists or precision ag specialists? Or, we got a lot of different good things going on, and it's really starting to catch on all across the country now. Everybody's talking, and we have a really, we have a very proven success record where we do implement programs and, precision habitat work. The results are really good. So Yeah,
Well,
it's
well,
we're
based
popular.
on your, on your model and Pheasants Forever's model, I mean,
Hmm.
volunteers in starting chapters
Hmm.
are a big deal. If
Oh
people,
yeah,
that might be listening right now say, "Hey, we'd love to have a Quail Forever chapter in our region," what do they need to do?
I just need to call me. I mean, jump on the website, um, click on my contact information. There's even a link on how to start a chapter. We got regional reps all over the country. We got good staff everywhere, and volunteers. Their time and what they do and the chapters they start are the lifeblood of the organization. I mean, they truly are. They to get involved at that local level and get the
Mhm.
momentum going and help us to start, as important as it is to raise money and leverage and match and pay for things, it's just as important to get new hunters outside to keep the tradition of hunting alive, to get women and kids outside doing it so we can grow that audience of the sport and just to educate folks about what's available. Everything from, even if they don't hunt, just the knowledge of the habitat and the species and what makes it works and pollinators and everything that goes with it um, is truly important. I mean, more than I can explain.
Amen. Amen. Well, we're going to do a state by state breakdown just to
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
give people an idea of what we're seeing, what you're seeing in quail country. But first, North Dakota wants to remind you that their bird numbers are also up. And if you don't trust me, take a look at your friends' social media feeds that have hunted in North Dakota. They probably have fistfuls of feathers in their photos. North Dakota's annual roadside counts for this year are up. Pheasants are up 38%, sharptails are up 54%, and Hungarian partridge are up 45%. My experience is that those numbers are all low because, my goodness, are there a lot of birds in North Dakota right now. And with an estimated 4 million breeding ducks, up 18% this year, North Dakota's central region is prime habitat for both hunting waterfowl and upland birds. Plus, North Dakota has more than 700,000 acres of private land open to public walk-in hunting. For the latest plots guide, visit the North Dakota Game and Fish Department or legendarynd.com. I use Onyx maps for many reasons. The most important reason might be because I hunt a lot of public lands in places that I've never been before. Onyx maps give me a peace of mind knowing that I'm always standing on public ground or land that I have permission to be on, and I can check my location while I'm walking in the field. They also reveal places that I can hunt when I'm scouting. I turn on the government layers in the state that I want to hunt, which essentially highlights lands that are open to the public. I start with the big picture view in the region that I'm in, and then I see a highlighted area. I zoom in for a closer look. I can drop a pin and drive right to it while I'm hunting. No more searching slowly online for information or looking at big, bulky atlas maps. With the Onyx app, everything I need to know is right at my fingertips everywhere I go. That includes private landowner names in case I want to stop and ask for permission. Download the Onyx app right onto your smartphone and take it everywhere with you in the field. Onyx maps are seriously the best tool for every hunter. They help you know exactly where you stand. Tim, you used both Onyx maps and hunted in North Dakota. Would you agree that
Oh,
the numbers are probably a little higher than the roadside counts
yeah.
indicated?
Yeah, it's they're the numbers are so good, and
They are. They are.
it,
It's so, like,
it
normally
is.
we're trying to convince people, hey, it's not that bad. It's okay. Give it a try, even if you don't get that many. And this year, it's just we're
Uh,
just gushing with positivity. Let's jump into quail country here.
yeah, yeah.
If you could only hunt quail in one place in America, where would that be and why?
Oh man, there's an easy question. No,
Right.
um, no, I got a lot of favorite spots. I really do. I, I probably, man, that's
Okay.
tough.
While you're
Uh,
thinking about it, I'll tell you mine.
okay,
In
do it.
Idaho, on the Snake River Canyon, hunting for California quail.
Uh,
It's one of
that's
the
all.
most beautiful places that I've ever watched dogs walk and coveys explode. Just spectacular. And I mean, just such a beautiful, beautiful bird when you bag them too. All right, now
Oh,
where's yours?
yeah. I like Kansas probably the most a lot.
Yeah.
I've had some great times out there, and when bird numbers are up, like they are right now, or or you're just having a good day out there because everything's working your way. I've put coveys up before and shot a couple birds, and then when my dog was retrieving a single, it ran into another covey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just seeing that many birds or bumping into multiple coveys like that in a short period of time is just magical to me. I grew up here in Southern Illinois. Even when bird numbers were probably a lot higher than they are right now, it was still kind of you still had to put your time in.
Mm-hmm.
You're covering a ton of ground and you're hoping to find a covey an hour. Is a phenomenal day. But out there, I've had days where I've I've done 2 or 3 times that, and it just those are special memories, and they're available right now. I mean, you can go out there
Mm-hmm.
and put your boot leather in and figure things out, and you can find a bunch of birds.
Do you know what the numbers are looking like this year compared to the past?
It,
Are they up?
Yeah, they're up. They started out kind of dry out there early on, but they had some good moisture into the spring and summer, so it made for some good weedy vegetation and habitat and some just weedy crops and
Mm-hmm.
edges and pivot corners and things like that. And I think they're looking good. I think they're up a little bit over last year, and last year was good. 3 years ago they really had a major increase, and they've been building off. It probably came down a little bit off of that 2-3 years ago, and that they're coming back up again. But regardless, I think those numbers out there right now are a lot are a lot better than they were 5, 7, 8 years ago. And
Nice.
it's you can consistently find birds out there, and that's fun for me, to be able to go out and have that much access and just know that you put your time in and you figure things out, you're going to consistently find birds, and that's great.
So I've had similar success hunting in Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
My experience has been kind of in that southwest region, and
Mm-hmm.
it was that mixed bag that you were talking about earlier. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
had pheasants, quail coveys. I mean, the dog would go on point, and you didn't know what was going to get up. I mean,
Yeah.
it would rotate, from bird
Mm-hmm.
species to bird species, and then we even found sharp tails and chickens too. I mean, it was incredible.
Oh man.
What's the quail forecast for Nebraska looking like this year?
I think they're looking pretty good. Like I said, they've had good quail numbers for 3-4 years now, and I think they're up a little bit from last year right now, just based on their nesting success and the weather they've had. Fairly mild winter last year, and I think it's good times to be in Nebraska. And people are raving about everything else, the chickens and sharp tails and all that, and
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go to the quail areas, you'll see popular, increases as well. But I've heard people talking about sharp tails and stuff up there, numbers they've never seen before. I mean,
In Nebraska?
yeah,
Dang.
yeah. I've gotten cell phone videos sent to me and everything else. It's good times to be a bird hunter up in that part of the world.
Well, is there a specific region that you would kind of like, if you had to go to Nebraska, where would you head?
Oh, a lot of folks, go to the hills for sure, and they chase a
Mhm.
lot of sharp tails and pheasants. I actually, most of my experience up there has been in the southeastern part, and I had really good luck there chasing quail, and like you said, run into pheasants too at the same time.
Mhm.
And I like that because there were really good quail numbers, but then it was like you had bonus birds blended in as well, and so I like the southeastern part myself a lot.
Nice. Let's head south. Let's go to Oklahoma. That's the first place I ever got to experience a true bobwhite hunt. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just phenomenal, and that was a few years ago. I've been hearing from people that Oklahoma quail numbers are up even more from last year. Some areas that are really, really strong.
Yeah.
What do you guys know about Oklahoma numbers?
They had a mild winter, and I think central and east parts of the state had a really good spring. Now, northwest and southwest, which are traditionally really popular areas to quail hunt, they got pretty dry this summer. And that's not a end game, but I've heard that east and central are, they're having a lot better conditions this year for good bird numbers, but as a whole, they are up. And what excites me about Oklahoma is that we have the state there has a new ORAP program. That's the Oklahoma Recreational Access Program, where they're getting VIPA HIP money, if you will, which is Voluntary Habitat Incentive Program dollars from the Farm Bill. They're getting money from the Farm Bill to lease private ground for public access. And that ORAP program is really taken off. We have a biologist there that works for us, actually, that's helping coordinate that program and signing a bunch of people up. So they're starting to get a lot more. They're getting a lot of new access there for hunters, which I think is awesome because, a lot of times there are higher populations of birds on private land because the public sites do tend to get beat up, but now more of that access is getting opened up. And I think that's a great thing for the sport and the hunter. And I'd head to Oklahoma and I would get my finger on, those ORAP sites and just, it's just new territory. I'd go.
Right. How do people find those? Do you know if they were available yet on Onyx?
Yeah, I don't, honestly, I don't know that there's an ORAP layer. And I could be totally wrong. I honestly don't know, but it would certainly be something to look into. And if not, you can go to the state website there and check it out and get access to the maps that way. They have an incredible state agency, wildlife department there. They're great. They're a great partner, and they're doing as much as they can for quail. And their agency director down there he's a good guy, and he's a quail guy too. So yeah, nice. just jump online and check it out.
Missouri and Arkansas, there's got to be good pocket areas in both of those states, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Missouri has got they have designated tax dollars for, their Missouri Department of Conservation. They get a percentage of sales tax. I believe it's 1/10 of 1% goes to the Missouri Department of Conservation. So they have a great department, a great state wildlife agency. MDC is the measuring stick for a lot of other departments at times because they have a great department. They have great facilities. They have great state parks, and they have great public wildlife areas too. They have quail emphasis areas over there, and you can get access to those maps by going online as well. And the thing I really like about Missouri too is because I cut through there going to Kansas, and I live right next to Missouri. I'm only a couple miles from the river here in Godfrey, Alton, Illinois, and I can jump across the river, or I can be cutting through going somewhere else on a hunting trip, and you can jump on their app and you can buy a non-resident hunting license for $12 a day, and you can you can hop on there, you can hit it. $12 and you're out the door hunting, and you can get out and take the edge off the dogs before, if you're on a trip to somewhere else, and you can just pull up a map to a quail emphasis area, and it's going to be, it's going to be beautiful. I mean, hopefully you find birds, but they got some cool terrain over there. They have a great department. They manage their habitat really well. You can't control everything, but they're trying to do everything they can to make an enjoyable experience. And I'm fond of that state a lot. And because I stopped there and I really enjoy their facilities. But like I said, $12 and you got the dog out of the box and you're hunting, you
can't afford really not cool to do it, right?
No, it's, and I'm usually so happy to go that I don't let the license prices or whatever. I don't mind being a non-resident and paying more. I appreciate being able to go places, and I know that money, is going to a good place. Generally, it goes back to benefit the species you're hunting, but it's pretty cool to be wheeling through there and be like, hey, you want to jump on the app and buy a license real quick for $12 and hop out and take the edge off the dogs and take the edge off yourself?
Right.
My buddies are like, yeah, let's do it. And, we've been able to stop and hunt different quail emphasis areas while cutting through to other states. And this is the first year. I was just talking to my buddy on the phone a couple of days ago. We're getting pretty excited because our upland bird season here in Illinois starts this weekend, and we're just kind of pre-gaming for what we want to do or where we want to go. And he's like, hey, what about just going over to Missouri and grabbing a cheap hotel somewhere or a state park cabin, because they got some phenomenal facilities and lodges at their state parks, rustic cabins that were built, by the CCC. And man, he's like, let's go over and grab a cabin for a couple of days and just hunt Missouri this year for a couple of days. And it's like, yeah, it is great and it's fun. And it's just, I don't know, it's about time we made it its own trip instead of it being the pass through to somewhere else. So we're gonna try that. We're gonna try that this year.
God, I wish we didn't have to work. We could just literally hunt every day. There's so many places that I want to go. I want to go join you at one of those cabins right now, Tim.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's the thing about I don't know, being locked down, if you will, this year is I've been on one trip already, and I gotta tell you, I don't feel like I've ever taken trips or hunting for granted, but man, it feels a little extra special this year. Just
It does,
you know,
yeah.
cooking on the tailgate with the camp stove, so you're not, I don't know, so you can kind of, socially distance, if you will. I mean, just
Mhm.
kind of being a little more self-sufficient and going back to the the coffee percolator and the camp stove on the tailgate, and I probably, I did all that in the early years of college and things like that, and now that I've gone back to it, I don't think I should ever left it. it's a
Oh, I
it's
know.
it's
So
it's a lot
I've
it's a lot of
camped
fun.
now in South Dakota, North Dakota,
Yeah.
Montana, and I picked up a really nice Camp Chef stove
Oh
setup.
yeah. Yep.
And the meals out there are
Oh,
so much better than if you're cooking at home. It
oh.
must be, the miles you put on your feet, and then where you're standing when you're cooking, and then you eat. You're like, oh gosh, this is a 5-star meal, And I just
It is.
I'm seriously really excited for my next camping trip right now. I'm enjoying these trips more than staying at a
Yeah.
hotel or a lodge because
y-
of just wake up and go
Yeah.
out and mule deer watching me percolate coffee and
Yeah.
antelope, and I'm there. I'm where I want to be. It just feels right. All right,
Oh
let's
yeah.
keep moving. Let's
Yep.
head south.
Yep.
Arkansas, bird
Yep.
numbers, quail numbers.
Yeah, man. Arkansas, they had a mild winter. Their birds are increasing. I talked with Marcus Asher down there, as their upland game biologist for the department. He's a great guy. We have biologists and habitat specialists both in that state, trying to
Mhm.
help out the cause. And, their spring started out a little too wet, but it leveled out into their traditional nesting months, if you will. April, May were pretty wet, but then June, July, and August leveled off nice. And I think they're having a really good year down there. And, if I was down in Arkansas this year, things I've seen, kind of tricks or tips, if you will, if you can seek out areas that have been burned for the last couple of years, it really kind of levels out that habitat cover. It promotes that early successional growth that quail are looking for, and you can do really well down there if you can find areas that have been burned, whether that's timber, grassland, or whatever. It just seems like that's kind of the hot button down there.
Huh.
If you,
I wonder if is there a way to find out? Go online
um,
somewhere, find burn
you,
areas.
I don't know that you'll find a burn map, if you will. If you're, lucky enough to talk to any of the agency folks down there, or,
Mhm.
if you know where you're going and you can go on our website and figure out where we have a biologist or a habitat specialist, don't be afraid to pick a phone up and call one of them, or shoot them an email, shoot them a text, Facebook message them, whatever, they
Mhm.
can certainly help you. And like I said, the agency folks down there, like Marcus, they're phenomenal. They love to talk about birds. They love quail, and I wouldn't, they might be too busy to holler back at you if you call one of their technicians or biologists, but I would certainly try, because they're great folks and they're doing good things, and they'll be happy to talk to you if they have the time to do it.
Cool. Yeah, I've done that a lot in my travels over the years. I've talked to dozens and dozens and dozens of people, and the knowledge you can get by just picking up the phone and
Oh,
calling people that are
yeah.
working on the ground. They're, in your organization, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever. It's a something that I tell people on this podcast all the time. I'm like, hey, if you're traveling, call somebody
Oh,
up and just get information. Don't ask for specific coordinates, but just get an idea. Hey, am I in the right area here? And they'll say, you know what? Actually head a little further south. Here's why. And it
mhm.
might be a weather that something passed through, or like you said, a burn area. I mean, that's good information for a
Oh,
traveling bird hunter, or people that, just maybe only live in that area, but only have 1 or 2 days to get out hunting for the year. You want to maximize it, right?
yeah. What, one of the things, hot tip, I guess, if you one of the things I've seen, or one of the best people to talk to, is the mail carrier. I mean, if you see a rural mail carrier, go by, a mailman, and he stopped or he's grabbing something to eat somewhere or something, if you can do it without interfering with his work, man, have a conversation with a mail carrier, because
Mm-hmm.
they travel the routes and the roads every day. And a lot of times, Kentucky, for example, one of the ways that they actually estimate their wild bird populations is they have a rural mail carrier survey. They actually talk to all the mailmen
That's
and
awesome.
women and all the mailmen and women in the regions of the state. And that is one of their measuring sticks for deciding how many birds and what the population is doing in their state.
Love it. Love it.
Um,
I filmed a show with a mail carrier up in Northwest North Dakota for that reason. He's just so dialed in. He's been a guest on here several times, and I actually have one of his puppies. Tyler Webster is his name, but he is so dialed in. But
oh,
it's because
yeah.
he chose that career path, and it's good for a bird hunter.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so let's go to the historic quail country,
Hmm.
Mississippi, Alabama,
Hmm.
Louisiana. Where are they at compared to historical numbers?
Everything have heard so far is they're a little bit up, I don't think they're seeing any major increases, but they're not seeing any major decreases either. I think business is good for hunting quail down those areas. Alabama's got a great state agency now. I was talking with them a little bit, and they continue to buy property and try to increase access and do everything they can so as many people can hunt quail as possible, and I like that. Whenever I talk to Chuck Sykes, the director down there, or Keith, the wildlife chief, my favorite thing is they say is we're hunting quail and we're trying to do everything we can so people can continue to hunt quail. And if that's get more habitat in the ground, if that's get more access, whatever that is, we're doing everything we can so people can hunt quail. And I love that attitude. They got a good one, and I think bird numbers down there you're going to see similar things to last year with probably a slight increase, and that's good news, especially when it comes to quail.
Correct. If in that southeast region, if you had one area that you would like to get that timber quail hunt, that
Mm-hmm.
historical quail hunt down there, where would you go?
Um, South Georgia and the Red Hills of Florida both are really tough to beat. Access isn't always easy, but they do have one thing for people to pay attention to is jump online, and for next year, because they've all been drawn for this year, but they have quota hunts in both areas where you can get in and actually be part of a drawing of quota areas where they have done incredible habitat management work in Georgia and Florida, but they have to limit the number of people that are chasing birds on those areas, because otherwise they'll get beat to death, because it's that good and the bird numbers are really good, and they just have to regulate how much pressure it's getting. But if you get drawn from one of those quota hunts, it's going to be a phenomenal time. You're going to get to experience just an amazing, southern pine quail hunt, and it'll be good. And then you can, if you draw that, it'll be worth the trip, because you'll have that cherry day, if you will, and then you can also hit the wildlife management areas in the region, and they won't be as good, but you're able to go, you're able to chase your dog, and who's to say you might not have a better day on a public area than you do on the quota? It's hunting, I mean,
Right.
yeah, I would either go to that South Georgia, Albany area. There's some quail focal areas down there you can find online through the Georgia DNR website or the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative website, or that Red Hills area, that kind of Tallahassee, North Florida. They have quail focal areas as well and quota hunts as well. But hop online and find those, and see when the dates start to put in, and definitely put in for next year. Says you'll be able to go down, you'll get the flavor of the region, you'll get to hunt public spots, and if you got one of those quota days too, it'll be a special experience.
Nice. Let's go where everything's bigger. How about Texas?
Yeah, Texas is, historically Texas is a very popular state for quail hunting. Because it's big. That
Mm-hmm.
is a giant state. I think they're seeing pretty good numbers this year from what I've heard. They had an incredible boom 4 or 5 years ago, and they're not, they've come down from that. But that was just an exceptional year where everything was perfect. It's like the year you live for. But I still think numbers are good down there, and it's worth making the trip for sure. But like I said, about 4 or 5 years ago, they just had one of those magical miracle years where everything was right and it rained a lot and they got a bunch of vegetation and down there moisture will make or break the season. It's just, if it's too dry, nothing grows, and if they get a bunch of moisture, the cover is amazing and the birds just absolutely explode. But from what I haven't heard a lot about Texas, but it's not a place I frequent or hunt. But I'm excited to go. I'm excited to go learn, which means I need to go down there and screw up about 10 times and learn from it. I just haven't done it. Just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, same here. I've had like 4 or 5 standing invitations to come down and film a show down there, and I just have to do it because it's just one of those places that you got to experience. Same with kind of that Alabama, Georgia area, those pines. I mean, that's something that it's on my list, and hopefully, I mean, we had plans actually to do that this year. It's just this world we're in, the pandemic, and trying to be responsible and travel and be safe as we possibly can. It's kind of pushed some of these grand plans back a little bit, but man, I'm hoping I can get down there next year. New Mexico. It's a state that probably should get more quail attention. I mean, what's your take on New Mexico?
I honestly have not hunted New Mexico. I hunted Arizona last year for the first time. I assume it's pretty similar. But that southwestern, the Mearns, all that, the gambles, it's totally different than chasing bobwhite. But man, it's a heck of a lot of fun. It's different birds, it's different habitat. It's a desert, if you will, but it's super cool. I went to Arizona last year and for the first time, and I shot Mearns, Montezuma, if you will, and Gamble's quail, and it was totally different than I'd done before, and I absolutely loved it. And what I do know is, Arizona is raving about their gambles number this year. I mean, they're seeing historic numbers because they had good moisture over they had this great wet winter again, and they're saying that they have numbers of Gamble's quail, some survey numbers that they have not seen in 20 plus years.
Damn it, Tim. I want to go to Arizona too, because I've heard the exact same thing, and I'm trying to break my not long distance travel rule because I really.
I know. I went last fall, and I plan to. I want to drop down there again. I got to see how things are going around the country. The same way I'm trying not to travel that far, but man, it was so much fun. I mean, it's just different, and I like doing new things and different things. It was like I got this whole new set of birds to chase, and it was a lot of fun. And I was gonna go back this September and dove hunt, actually, because we have biologists on the ground out there that are, they're helping the state agency lease private land for access to even dove hunt. And there were all these doves everywhere. And I was like, they're like, hey, you should come back for a couple days in September. And the dove hunting is phenomenal. And they were showing me, videos on their phones and stuff. And it was like, you know what? I should come back in September and start the season a little earlier this year. But it just, it didn't work out with, everything that's going on in the world right now. But as soon as things are right, man, I'm going back to Arizona. Because like I said, to be able to shoot those gambles. And I went out with some chapter volunteers and they took me out and hunted Mearns, and it was amazing. Like those birds, wherever there's a little bit of moisture, those birds have these long claws on their feet, and they're actually digging up little tubers and eating them.
Which is you can see the digs out there when you find them. I mean, what do they call them? Maybe not digs, but I've hunted down there in Arizona as well, and I've seen them. And I mean, gambles are like, I don't know, ninjas, I think they call them.
Yeah,
like that's the way fair. They run, and you're like, it's a high speed. Like you go from this low, not necessarily a low, but like You're walking at a normal pace, and then it's just woo, you go into 180 miles an hour. It's not a
Oh,
typical Bob White hunt, but it is so cool, so
oh, it,
cool.
it is. I went down there and I hunted Merns the first day. It was great, and we killed birds
Hmm.
and had a lot of fun. And then the next day we went and hunted Gambel's quail a little farther north in the state. And it's just like you said. It was like the next day I wish I had put running shoes on because you just see these things everywhere running, and
Hmm.
you almost had to get ahead of them or get on top of them or spook them to flush them. It's like dog would go on point, and all of a sudden you'd see these little heads shooting through the cactus. And it's like they were just getting
Yep.
out of dodge. it was
Oh,
it was
so
it
much
was
fun.
it was
Do you
wild.
have a kind of a region that you're hearing about in Arizona that the gambles are up, or is it just universally?
Um, I think the southeast is where I'm hearing the most chatter. And when I hunted over there, I was south of Tucson, between there and the border, and did
Mhm.
really well. But I'm hearing a lot about the southeast part of the state right now. And like I said, they're raving about those Gambel's quail being in their backyards and everything else. Like they
Wow.
said, the numbers are. I saw a brood survey that was talking about broods of 13 to 15 chicks, per brood. And I
All
thought
right. Well, you'll be
that
seeing Arizona quail hunt again next year on the Flush Television show because I'm going back.
I was like, that's
Actually, if you do want to watch it, 2 years ago I hunted with Patrick Flanagan from Border to Border Outfitters, and that show is on our YouTube channel. So you just go to the Flush on YouTube, and you'll be able to find it, and you'll be able to see exactly what that hunt looks like if you've never experienced a Gambel's hunt. And then the quail country is just beautiful. I mean, you're in the mountains. It's just gorgeous. It's if you want to get away from things for a while in January where it's nice and warm, I would highly put I would highly recommend putting Arizona on your list. Let's go to Nevada because I've hunted chukar there. I've heard some pretty positive things about the quail there from time to time, but again, it's moisture based. So, did they get the moisture they needed this year?
I think it was a little dry. They had a
Dang.
they had a pretty dry summer, I think. But I mean, I'm sure if you jumped online, some bird hunting forums, things like that, I'm sure there's pockets that are good, and I'm sure there are pockets that are bad. But the thing that intrigues me about Nevada, and I haven't actually been myself and hunted, is there's a ton of access. There's a lot of BLM
Mm-hmm.
ground. There's just a lot of available ground to hunt. And I think any state that has that, if you're willing to put the time in, the boot leather in, you can typically find birds, But I don't have any personal knowledge, I guess, myself in Nevada. But like I said, I jump online to their state agency website or bird hunting forums and ask around. We got a great Western regional director out there, Al Iden. He's a phenomenal guy. You can find his contact information on our website at pheasantsforever.org or quailforever.org. He's a great guy. Shoot him an email, a text, or a phone call, and I think he could help you out as well. He's the one that put me on the birds in Arizona. He actually worked for the fishing, Arizona Fish and Game before he came to work for us, and just a great guy, great biologist, and just a wealth of knowledge for hunting out west.
Nice, nice. What do you guys feel about California? I know it doesn't seem like a bird hunting state, but I believe there's like 400,000 upland bird hunters in
Yep.
California. Is that accurate?
I don't know about the number of bird hunters. That seems
Okay.
like a lot, but it could be. I mean, I'm not familiar with their hunter numbers, but
Okay.
they do have a lot of territory out there, and they got mountain quail, California quail, they got gambles in the southeast. I haven't ever hunted California. It's one of those spots I'd like to get to. It's kind of like your Texas, It's like I got a
Hmm.
couple invites and I haven't made it yet. But the and this was one of those years that I had kind of thought about California before travel restrictions and things like that. But the
Yeah.
one big factor about California this year, I think you gotta maybe put it on your calendar for next year, is that it's really dry out there. They're having a lot of fires, There's a lot of restrictions. There's national forests that are closed and things like that. There's really a lot of restrictions due to wildfires. So if I'm not telling people not to go. I just make sure you do your homework before you do
research.
Yeah, do your research and make sure that the area you're going to is available and safe. Because those fires are really probably the worst we've seen out there, because it is very, very dry. So just be careful if you're going. Like I said, do your homework. But it intrigues me, man. You looked at all the different species out there and how big of a state that is, and just the West Coast, and it's definitely on my bucket list.
Yep, absolutely. Did that dry conditions extend into Oregon and Washington and Idaho as well?
I haven't heard about Oregon and Washington. I think Idaho's in pretty decent shape from what little I've heard. But I know, off the edges, it's as a whole, they had a pretty dry summer out in the West.
Okay. Well, let's sum this up. Let's take a big picture view. If you're a bird hunter and you're saying, where could I go this year that I've got 1 6-day period available in the next couple months and I want to maximize it. Where would you go based on your intel for this season on a quail hunt? Would it be Arizona?
I got a lot of favorites in my head, man. You
can have two. You can pick two then.
I would go to Arizona and I'd go to Kansas.
Would it be? Okay.
I'll be honest, I'm going to go to Arizona and I'm going to go to Kansas.
There you go. Well, send me your itinerary and then I will join you and we'll just make a television show out of it.
Oh yeah. Bring that Camp Chef stove and we'll make it happen.
Well, the Kansas one is intriguing because that one I could haul the camp setup down to. Arizona, that's an airplane flight for me.
It is, it is. I did that last year, and it's hard to wrestle with it because I love my dogs, I love my own dogs, but there's a lot of good people out there with a lot of good dogs and a lot of good chapter volunteers, and it's cool. It is.
Gotcha. Well, I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge. I know you're a busy man. Appreciate all you're doing for quail across the country, and I hope you have a wonderful season. Maybe we'll check in here as more of these seasons start to open and we get a little bit more hunter feedback too, to kind of just direct people. And then once again, too, if you're looking for information in a certain region, hop on quailforever.org, the website, and find biologists around the country. They're helpful. They will help you, and they're available. So take advantage of that. Tim, any parting thoughts?
No, just everything you said. Hop on quailforever.org. We got a quail forecast on there that breaks it down by individual states, probably some we didn't even talk about today. And just everybody be safe out there and enjoy the outdoors and take somebody new hunting. Perfect.
Once again, thank you to North Dakota Tourism for helping us to make this show possible. To beg your limit this fall in North Dakota, visit legendarynd.com. And don't forget to download the Onyx map to help plan your hunting adventures and find those pieces of property that are open to the public and full of wild birds. Current episodes of the Flush television show are airing now on the Outdoor Channel. You can catch the action every week, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Flush Podcast.